guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a quick look at the Realme 7. Now I know that the Realme 8 has released and the Realme 8 Pro, but we're just going to have a look at the Realme 7 and see if it's still a viable option for you today. And then we'll look at a couple of other phones in the same sort of price bracket with the same sort of specs and see which one is going to be better. Would it be the Realme 7 or would it be those options? So let's dive in. Okay, so here we have the Realme 7. So this was released in October of last year, boasting some pretty decent specs at a very affordable price. Now I bought this back in February for £149, so back then that's a really good price. I think now if you look on Amazon it's around £180, so it has jumped up in price a little bit, but even to be honest at that £180 price point it's still very good value for money. So if I just go through a few of the specs, in terms of the display you get a 6.5 inch Full HD Plus display with a 90Hz refresh rate. Up in the top corner, if I just flip the phone round, top left hand corner, you get a 16 megapixel f2.1 selfie camera, and then you've got a pretty minimal chin on the bottom there. If I flip back over, so I've got this in the mist blue, it's also available in a white colour as well. So on the back you can see there's a quad camera setup which consists of a 48 megapixel main lens at f1.8, an 8 megapixel f2.3 119 degree field of view ultra wide lens, and then two macro and depth sensors, both 2 megapixels and both f2.4. Video on the main camera tops out at 4K at 30 frames per second with electronic image stabilization. And then you've on the 16 megapixel selfie camera, video tops out at 1080p at either 30 or 120 frames per second. If you look on the top, although there's nothing there, on the bottom you have your USB-C port, headphone jack, microphones and speaker grill. On the right hand side you have your power button with your integrated fingerprint sensor. And then on the left hand side you've got your volume buttons and your SIM tray, which is dual SIM, and it also has support for micro SD. In terms of the materials used, of course this is a plastic phone, but what I quite like about this is it's got that two-tone design on the back which is quite unique, and then it's kind of got an interesting reflective effect on the back as well. It is a matte finish as well, so it isn't prone to picking up a million fingerprints, so it is a phone that you could quite easily use out of the case if you're not too bothered about the scratches. And then you've got a plastic frame as well. So let's quickly test out the fingerprint sensor. Really quick. Most phones these days have really quick fingerprint sensors. There isn't many on the market now which have any that are particularly slow. Not that I know of, but if you know of any, let me know in the comments. So, yeah. Pretty good. Right, okay, so if I just flip into the settings, display and brightness, more, screen refresh rate, so it is set at 90 Hz. You can set it to 60 Hz, or you can have it on auto select, which automatically selects the best refresh rate for whatever app you're using and may turn it off to conserve battery life. So as you can see, it's nice and smooth. You know, when you press the back it just really quickly goes between the menus. So yeah, it's a really nice, a really smooth experience. That is helped by the MediaTek Helio G95 processor which is in this phone. So that's a 12nm processor which is more tweaked for sort of gaming, so it's got a high score on Antutu for anybody who's interested in that sort of thing. And then this model has 6GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. It is available in other configurations, 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage, or 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. So I went for the 6 and 64 instead of the 4 and 64, and at the time the 8 and 128 model wasn't available to me, so I went straight for that one. It is really nice to see a budget phone with 6 gigs of RAM. A lot of the other ones that I've used have had 4 gigs of RAM, which, you know, they're still fine, but having 6 gigabytes is something that I would pick over, say, high internal storage, because, you know, you can expand the storage on this phone. In terms of the battery, you get a very large 5000 milliamp battery inside, which, to be honest, is pretty common for budget smartphones. Most of them house a 5000 milliamp battery, but what this one has a good benefit of is it supports Realme's 30-watt dart charging. So this allows you to get from 0 to 50% in around 26 minutes, and then 100% in just over an hour. So a very large battery, but it charges up really, really quickly. So if we just talk quickly about the quad camera setup on the Realme 7. So as I said before, you get a 48 megapixel main sensor. It's strange, on the Asian models of the Realme 7 and I believe the Realme 6 before, this is actually upgraded to a 64 megapixel main sensor. All the other camera specs are the same, but yeah, on the global version you get a 48 megapixel sensor, which, to be honest, for me is not really that much of an issue. This is still going to put out high resolution images, so they're going to be 12 megapixels, pixel binned, so 4 pixels into 1. In low light, this is going to produce some really detailed photos. So if we just jump into the camera app and start this way, so this here, you've got night mode, which is supported on the ultra wide, and then you've also got a 2x and 5x digital crop. Video again is supported on the ultra wide, of course, and then you've got the same settings there. And then this is just the normal photo mode. If you dip into settings, you can set your video resolution. So it's defaulted at 1080p. You can drop it down to 720p if you want to, and there is also the 4K support there, and you can change the frame rate. One thing I have noticed, I don't know if you guys have as well, that this battery drain is absolutely insane. Side note, this is the first time that I've noticed any sort of major battery drain like this. Just a second ago it was at 26% and it's now 18, now 17, so I'd have no idea what's going on here. I will charge it up to full and have a little play around afterwards and see if the battery drain is going to be the same, but that's really not good, and that has not happened to me the entire time that I've used it. So it's dropping down to 16 already. So if you guys keep an eye on that while you're watching this video and see, this is where it's died. And the battery's just died at 16%, and now the phone is unresponsive. So bear with me, I will charge it up and I'll carry on and we'll see how the battery fares then. Okay, so I just plugged the Realme 7 into the 30-watt dart charging. I took it outside to take a few photos as well, and the phone has only just dropped down to 62% from 63%. So that's more apparent with the battery life that I've had from it whilst I've used it. What happened before, I don't know. It's not happened at all. So I'm just going to have a quick little play on a couple of things just while I'm doing this video here, just to see if the battery drains down anymore. Personalizations. So on here you can change colours, icon style, your text, what your notification drawer looks like, the shapes of the icons there. So that's quite a cool little feature. What else have we got? Home and lock screen. So you can go on your home screen and change to an app drawer, which I would imagine most people do from the get-go, or you've got standard mode, which is kind of like your iOS style where there's no app drawer. You just sort of swipe on your home screen to find your apps. And then the simple mode, which is for those that might be visually impaired and might need the apps to look bigger and easier to see. Home screen layout 5:6, that's obviously just showing you the the layout of the icons. You can change that to however many columns and rows you want to do. Display and brightness. So I always have my phones on dark mode. It's just easier on the eyes and it's not so draining on the battery life, which, although to be honest, I'm not really sure how much of a difference these days it makes, but nevertheless, I always put dark mode on. Auto brightness is on. Eye comfort mode, that's just changing the light output from the display from blue to a more warmer yellowy orange, so especially at night it's easier for you to go to sleep on all that sort of stuff. Auto screen rotate for when you're watching videos or you're looking at your photos and you want to look at them in landscape. Auto screen off, so set to 30 seconds. If you've not used the screen, it will switch it off, but you can change that from 15 seconds all the way up to 30 minutes. Why you would want your screen on for 30 minutes after you've used it, your guess is as good as mine. You can manually change the colour screen temperature if you want to, and then you can change your font display as well, the size and all that sort of stuff. Fingerprint and face password, that's obviously all your locking and unlocking of the phone. Battery gives you all your info on your battery, so screen on since last full charge, what's available, so that's what's roughly going to last you, and then you can turn on your power saving mode, which will extend it, and then your super power saving mode, which will turn off most even remotely draining activities that you would do on your phone. Usage, so it gives you your percentage usage on your apps that you've used. And then more battery settings, you can turn on performance mode, optimize battery usage and all that sort of stuff. And then optimize night charging, which I will turn on. So the phones will generally learn your charging routine. So if you've got your phone plugged in overnight, then it won't charge to 100% by 1 o'clock in the morning and then sit at 100% until you wake up. They'll generally charge to around 80% and then slowly trickle the rest of the charge up to 100% ready for when you wake up. I think one of the first manufacturers to bring this out was Asus when they introduced it in their Zenfone 5 series. I could be wrong, but that's just what I remember. I remember the keynote from that. Okay, so we've looked over a few little bits. It's still at 62%. Obviously those weren't, power intensive tasks that I was just doing. It was just kind of flipping through the interface, but it's still at 62%. Okay, so that's my look at the Realme 7. Just going through a few of the basics of the phone. In terms of if it's still good value for money, aside from the little hiccup with the battery, which I still don't know what happened. It's not happened before. So going by my experience, aside from that little hiccup, it's still a really good phone. I'd still recommend it. The camera takes pretty decent photos. The video's good. The battery lasts all day, no problem. And the 90Hz refresh rate is a nice addition as well. The screen is crisp and very, very smooth. In terms of a couple of other options, you've got the Oppo A72, which is very, very similar to the Realme 7 in a lot of ways. Color OS, which is Oppo's theme on their phones, is very similar to Realme UI, but then Realme, Oppo and Vivo are all part of the main, or that big blanket company. So there are going to be a lot of features on the Oppo A72 which are almost identical to the Realme 7. I've obviously done videos on the Oppo A72, so be sure to check those out on my channel. And then another one for me, which is a recent video that I've done, is the Motorola G30. I've picked this just because it's a very similar price to what the Realme 7 was when I bought it. It also shares a 90Hz refresh rate display. Although the display is only 720p, so the Realme 7 definitely wins on that front. But 64 megapixel quad camera, which is the same as the Oppo A72. So again, they're all pretty comparable in terms of photo quality. In terms of performance, I'd say the Realme 7 wins that one. It's got the more powerful G95 processor. It has 6GB of RAM. Bloody Motorola noise. as opposed to the 4 gigs on the G30 and also the A72. But the G30 has an advantage to some people of a more stock Android experience, so there's no bloatware, there's no duplicate apps which you might find on some of these other phones. Samsung is one, although I haven't reviewed any Samsung phones yet. But don't get me wrong, the G30 is still a really good phone. I've done a kind of real world test, camera test type thing on the G30, so be sure to check that out. And I've also done a comparison of the G30 and the G9 Plus, so again, check that out if you're interested. So thank you for watching this kind of throwback video on the Realme 7. If you like what you see, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'm pretty close to hitting my first milestone on this channel, which is 100 subscribers, which to you guys probably isn't a lot, but to me it means a lot for the people that have subscribed already. So if you can help me get to that 100 subscriber milestone, that'll be absolutely amazing, and then we can just let the channel grow on its own, the more videos I do, and hopefully that you guys will watch and enjoy. So again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.